So Australia's Foreign Minister Julie Bishop spoke last week at the Women's Weekly Women of the Future event in Sydney. Or put another way, she attended a self-congratulatory gabfest for women with a healthy measure of victimhood thrown in. And so what better forum to take a dump on men and receive the adulation of your peers for doing so?
I've not been held back, and it would be very churlish of me to claim any kind of victim status because I have achieved what I wanted to achieve in politics and I've been very fortunate. But, you know, one of my responsibilities has to be to ensure that there are more women in politics. You mentioned the occasion when I was the only woman in the federal cabinet, an extraordinary outcome in 2013, let's face it. And it was pretty lonely. I would be sitting in a cabinet with 19 men and me. And I don't know if anybody in the room's ever had this experience, but believe me, it's real. I will say something, come up with an idea, put forward a point of view and wait for a response. Nothing. They go to the next person. Halfway around the room, a guy will say exactly what I said, exactly my idea, exactly my initiative, and the others will say, brilliant, what a genius idea. And excuse me, didn't I just say that? And this happened time and time again. And when more women came into cabinet, we had this little deal. Didn't matter what the other woman said, the rest of us would go, oh, God, that is brilliant. Did you all hear that? Did you hear what? And so we do it now and reinforce each other's point of view. Yeah. And all of a sudden the guys say, why are they doing that? But it's that unconscious bias, or it's almost a deafness that we still see in Australian society.
So we'll get on to the credibility of Bishop's claims about being ignored in the cabinet room in a minute. And let's put aside the now widely memed "it's current year" argument, as if that had ever had any credibility, and just focus on the claim of unconscious bias. For those of you not familiar with Australian politics, as I said at the beginning, Julie Bishop is the Foreign Minister of Australia and probably amongst the top 2 or 3 candidates in line to replace the current Prime Minister if he were to be ousted or lose at the next election, which he almost certainly will. So with that context, I ask you, what hope do we have of holding back the tide of social justice nonsense when both political parties are in lockstep on poorly founded science like unconscious bias? Remember recently that the government's own study of unconscious bias found the opposite conclusion of what was predicted. White men were more likely to be discriminated against in hiring decisions, and that white men were also more likely to hire minorities or women than any other group. But let's just ignore that and lazily rattle off popular talking points. Now, how about the veracity of Bishop's claims of being ignored in the cabinet room, and what does it say about decision-making at the upper levels of our government if women are just pushing policies through because another woman came up with them? Well, Peter Credlin spent some time in the cabinet room during the period Bishop described, and here's what she had to say.
First of all, Peter Credlin, is this your memory of what really happened? I mean, did Julie Bishop have all these great ideas that were ignored just because she was a woman?
Well, I was at the lunch on Wednesday when she made those remarks, and I also had 8 years as the Secretary of Shadow Cabinet listening to Julie's brilliant ideas, and 2 years sitting in Cabinet for most of the Abbott government listening to Julie's brilliant ideas. And I don't have any sense at all that Julie was ignored. In fact, most meetings started with Julie speaking and ended with Julie speaking. And you can do a ring around of the cabinet at the time and they'll confirm that is absolutely spot on. I think Julie, having had 10 years as the deputy leader, Andrew, I think she diminishes all Liberal women by saying that just because the idea comes from a woman, it should be supported. And conversely, that means that just because the idea comes from a man, it should not be supported. I mean, as a colleague of hers said to me over the weekend, if she was just barracking for the ideas because they were women, then that explains how we got Kelly O'Dwyer's appalling superannuation policy. I think those sorts of comments...
Cruel.
Well, that was put to me. That was put to me, and this is where it's wrong. I mean, I think, you know, one of the questions I have for women like Julie, who have been in a very powerful position now for a decade, why, if we've got women in these senior positions, Andrew, out of 150 members of the House of Representatives, of which 76 are coalition MPs, why are there only 13 women sitting in the parliament for the coalition in the House of Representatives? Why is there only 13? I think the question has got to be to women of her generation. I'm a completely different generation than Julie. I don't see gender so much in the cabinet room. Trying to make the cabinet room anything other than a robust debating forum for the very best politics and the very best policy diminishes us all. It's not about gender.
Look,
it's not about ethnicity.
But I can't believe
it's not about
Peter
states, and it's not about factions.
I can't believe that she would be cheering on ideas influencing the government of this country, people's jobs on the basis of whether a woman said it or not. This is just such rank sexism. It's so stupid. But listen, quickly, we've run out of time, but I want to ask you...
She got captivated by the room.
I think that's exactly right. But look, I've run out of time, but very, very quickly, because I really want to ask you about this. What do you make of the decision of the New South Wales Liberal Party's acting president to suggest bringing in gender quotas at pre-selections to address the problem that you suggest, that perhaps there's not enough women?
I think he's mad. I think he's absolutely mad. Liberal women do not want a seat in Parliament or a seat on a committee or any job just because we are women. We don't want to be lifted up because we're women. We just don't want to be held back because we're women. Thatcher did not need a quota, Andrew. Good women do not need a quota. We need a lot more support at candidacy level, at pre-selection level. There must be targets at pre-selection level, but the good women will come through. The big problem we've got is the factions are as much a fault of not getting women into Parliament as anything else, and that's where New South Wales in particular should put its attention.
And of course, these systems usually then end up in people who say yes to the machine getting the pre-selection.
Andrew,
Peter Credlin,
I know you've got to go. I know you've got to go. Can I just make one point though? There's a national electoral study of how we rank with female voters around the country. We have never slipped below 40 as a Liberal Party. We have never slipped below 40 in the 30 years of this study by Professor Ian McAllister of the Australian National University. Under Turnbull, we went to 35. So only 35% of Australian women between 18 and 64 years of age voted for my side of politics. That is a disgrace, and that has to change as well.
Well, I wish more women would adopt that line of thinking, not wanting jobs because they're women, not just supporting policy ideas because it came from a woman. But perhaps the drop in the number of women supporting your side of politics is because more women have fallen hook, line and sinker for the notion that they are oppressed and they do deserve jobs because of the shape of their genitalia and because it's the current year. I mean, where are the women standing up and demanding that we wind back these quota systems for the Australian Defence Force, the Australian Federal Police, the New South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, the South Australia Police? Your silence is deafening, ladies. And of course, it's all reinforced by the Prime Minister himself, who after hearing of Bishop's comments came out and praised the phenomenal women in his cabinet, presumably for agreeing with each other. So to Julie Bishop I say, stop pretending you're a victim. It's not like you were sent into a coal mine on your own. You get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to swan around the world on the taxpayer's dime, and more importantly, stop telling lies about unconscious bias and people stealing your ideas. That's no way to attract more women to your side of politics. So, are you guilty of stealing ideas from women and passing them off as your own? Let me know how you've oppressed women in the comments below. I'll see you next time.